Hello and welcome to this recording. I'm George, I'm a project consultant at Grad Consult, and in this 30-minute recording, we're going to be talking all about personal branding. And here are some of the things that we hope you can take away from this session. So the first thing is to understand the components of a personal brand. We also want you to understand your own personal values, which we'll cover in this session. Then we want you to be able to differentiate between offline and online branding and how they actually relate to each other as well. And we want you to be comfortable with sharing the story of you, embracing your personal brand and using it to your advantage. So the first thing to consider is, what is a personal brand? It may be a term that you've heard before. It may be a term that you think actually it doesn't relate to you, but you know it relates to other people. So we have the definition here. And it simply is, your personal brand is the image others have when thinking about you. It is what you represent to others, your values, skills, and actions that are associated to you. Now, as I just said, you may think that, oh, personal brand doesn't relate to me. I don't have a personal brand. Maybe I'm not a big enough name, so to speak. That's maybe all for celebrities or other people. But no, we're here to say that everybody has a brand. Each individual has a brand, whether they like it or not, or whether they're aware of it or not. And that's something that we want you to take away from this session. Each person has a brand, and whether you're aware of it or not, it is happening. And hopefully this session can help you take away how you can actually manage your brand and how you can utilize it, and just to be aware of the power of having your own brand and what it means for you. And this is nicely summed up in a quote here by Jeff Bezos, and people may agree or disagree with Jeff's personal brand, so to speak, but there's a nice quote here from Jeff basically that describes personal brand. So it simply says that your personal brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. And it is that simple, basically, and that is the point that we're trying to emphasize here, the point that we want you to take away. It happens to all of us. We all have a personal brand, and it's just basically how others perceive us. However, having a personal brand doesn't necessarily mean you're now going to be creating a false personality that's based on things that don't actually relate to you, that aren't important to you. It still is important to show your authentic side and the real part of your personality, and then have that come across and have that be the impression that people have of you when they think about you and when they see your name and things like that. So we'll talk about how this is relevant in the work market, in the workspace as well, in a few slides time. But it's not about putting on a false persona. It's about demonstrating your authentic self throughout, so that can build your personal brand. So we're now going to be talking about your specific brand and the factors that result in what your brand is and how it's represented to the world. So of course, we've got our personal brand, which is on the online environment, and it's basically, it comes across as what you're interacting with and what you're doing online. That's the impression that you give off. And especially in the place that we're at now, in terms of how many people are online and how crucial the virtual environment is to our day-to-day life, you are giving off an impression every time you engage with social media, every time you engage with the online environment. Now, this is not to say that people are going to be searching your name or Googling you or anything like that. It's just to say that any activity you do online is there. It's available for everybody to see, of course, unless you've got privacy settings or you're on private. But on the whole, on the average, most things that you can see, people who follow you, people who can access your page can see basically what you're engaging with and can build an impression of it from there. And yes, that might sound a little bit crude, or you might not be thinking about it in that way, but that's just what happens. That can happen. That is human nature. There's lots of people on the online environment that we've never met before, but we can gain an impression of them from what we see that they do online. And it is just that simple. And again, it's not to say that employers are going to be searching your name and trying to find out all these details to try and trip you up. It's just to simply say that your thoughts that are posted online can easily be accessed by everybody. So that's the impressions that you're giving off. And Sometimes an employer might want to look at your LinkedIn profile, which is probably the most professional side of your, or at least it should be the most professional side that you're posting, and that is the most professional side that you're reflecting as well of your personality. But just to be mindful that, yeah, everything you do, even away from a career setting and work setting, even if you're kind of posting on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and all those other things, that still is giving off an impression to your friends and to your families as well. And that's no different for those in careers and those who are recruiters and employers. The same applies. They get an impression from you. Likewise, you get an impression from them from what they're doing online as well. However, as we said initially, it's not all about online activity. We still exist in the physical world. We still do stuff day to day. That is critical to our brand. It's not all about what happens online. Of course, there's a time before the virtual environment, but everybody still had a reputation. Everybody still had the personal brand, basically, but it was just seen more into in the interactions that we had with people. And it was typically on a smaller scale because it could only be what you saw an individual do rather than seeing what they do online now. But it's still there and it still is relevant now. And the next few slides are going to demonstrate how it's relevant, how it manifests itself day to day. So here are just a few examples of basically how your real life activity gives off an impression. So for example, these are just small typical examples really that a lot of people could relate to. So for example, if you're a painter, then that gives off an impression that you're creative or you're interested in creativity, you're interested in art and demonstrating your creativity in that way. If you was to attend a plastic workshop, which you can see here in the bottom left, people have done a plastic pledge to stop using plastic. Again, that shows that you care about the environment, you care about sustainability. And then you've got two other events here. One is a festival, and that might make people think that you're someone who's outgoing, extroverted, likes to have fun, and things like that. Of course, these are simply just quick reactions. These are just automatic thinking processes. And these are simple things, and just because you like to go to festivals, that might not mean you're extroverted. It might not mean that you always like to go out. But those can be some of the impressions that people perceive. Now, they might not strictly always fall into that and think, okay, that person's a bit of a party animal if they go to festivals. But these are the automatic thoughts that people have. It is just human nature. Sometimes our intuitions, our human nature isn't always correct, but these are the initial thoughts. Now, it's not to criticize anybody for doing any of these things. Of course, absolutely everybody should do what they want to do. But again, all these things give off an impression. That's simply how we learn how to communicate with each other. For example, if I was someone who liked festivals and I saw you posting about a festival, I would know we have something in common. And again, if I happen to see you at this festival, again, I have a stronger inkling that we have something in common compared to if you was to maybe do painting and I never did painting or something like that. So that's how we can relate to each other, and that is the power of the personal brand. The previous slide spoke about activities, things that we might want to do in terms of entertaining ourselves or doing actual things just to pass the time. This slide relates to things that we actually do every single day in our day-to-day life, things that are central to our lives. So you're seeing here on the bottom left, we're talking about finances. How do you manage your finances? Are you someone who's a bit stricter with your finances? Or maybe are you carefree? You like to splurge a bit and people can see that, and maybe you're buying expensive things or designer brands or things like that. Again, you may think this sounds a lot like judgment, but these are the impressions that you give off, and this is what people perceive. And it is just a natural way that humans work. It's not the best way, of course. We would want people not to judge, but this all culminates in the personal brand, in the reputation. The other images talking more about caregiving, and maybe someone has those sorts of commitments that they have to do. And again, that shows that maybe they're nurturing and they're caring and they care about family and friends. Again, that's just to give you a bit of insight of some of the impressions that people will get when they see you behaving in a way, or they see what you're doing day to day. Not only that, these things can actually be skills. So these can be referenced as skills in job applications. So if you talk about finances, if you're someone that can manage your finances well and you're financially stable, you can talk about that, how you're organized and how you're disciplined in job applications as well. And that's the impression that you'll get not only the applications, but as you get to know people more in a work setting, there'll be those sorts of impressions that come off. Okay, yeah, definitely a disciplined and responsible, a sensible person. That's what comes across. And again, if you're a caregiver, that just shows that you're nurturing, you're caring, and that you care about family and friends, and you're dedicated to helping other people. And things like that, these things could be skills as well. So that can come across in a job application, and it can come across when you're working day to day. But these are the impressions, these are the things that people are going to be thinking about in what you do day to day. And again, it's not to say that it's always right. It's not to say what is right and wrong here. It's to say these are impressions that come off, and everybody will interpret things in their own way, and that could be completely different to how it's meant to be, or it could be spot on. But that's just how humans work, and that's the point we want to emphasize. And all of this contributes to your personal brand. Another key part of your personal brand is values and understanding your values. It's a crucial part of your brand, and it's basically the foundation, the building blocks of your personal brand, of your whole personality, really. And these are things that you actually want to be conveying to people, and these are the things that people are going to attribute to you when they see what you're doing. As we spoke about earlier, if you're someone that would do a plastic-free pledge, then sustainability might be a value to you. So I hope you can have an idea of what we mean in terms of how values can be shown and why they are so important. This is why they matter. This is how they actually work day to day. So they guide our decisions. If you're mindful, if you're someone that believes in sustainability, you're not going to be buying lots of plastic, or you might be forced to do so in terms of the supermarkets, the things that are out of your control, but you'd be mindful of managing your plastic consumption, how many things you're buying and what that contributes to the environment in a positive or a negative way. So that's just one example for sustainability. I'm sure you can think of plenty others in terms of when you have a value that helps you to understand the decisions that you're making and why you're making them. And then it results into what you actually do as well. It then leads to kind of your strengths, strengthens your ability to influence others. If you're aware of your values and your motivations, you can convey that to others. You can articulate that to others as well. So that does help when you're communicating with others, which leads on to the next point. It creates clarity. So you know how to make decisions, and you know where you stand with other people. You know what's right for you. You know what's not right for you, what's wrong for you. And that really helps just in terms of your mindset. And when you're interacting with other people as well, they're going to know where you stand on certain topics if you can allow your values to come across, if you can convey what your values are in your actions and in your words as well. It helps to really build a picture. And the main thing is it guides your behavior. That's why values are so important. In terms of what values you align to, what you live by, here's a few values here on this slide. And there might be a few that are jumping out to you right now that you think, yeah, those definitely relate to me. But I just want to show you the importance of understanding your values and how that relates to the work environment. So on this slide, I've highlighted compassion. So if you're an individual who thinks they are compassionate, they align with that value, they like to see in others, and they believe they are a compassionate individual, then you're not going to be someone who would want to work in investment banking or insurance, so to speak. Those sectors, those industries aren't as compassionate, really. If you're someone that really does care about compassion, they might not be right for you. However, you might want to work in the charity sector, where that is definitely based on empathy and compassion, a lot more so than investment banking or insurance. Now, if you flip that and if you say, actually, wealth is an important value to me, I will want to be wealthy, then a career in investment banking could be right for you. It could be a better fit. Same with insurance, same with anything that does have high financial rewards. Now, this is not to say that there's a false dichotomy or that these are mutually exclusive. If you want wealth, it doesn't mean that you can't be compassionate, but it's just to give you an idea of how the values relate to certain actions. Of course, you can want wealth and be compassionate at the same time. There might be a slight trade-off. It might mean that you can't be as wealthy in terms of your compassion might not let you allow allow you to gain as much money as you could do in terms of other things, in terms of certain careers, certain decisions that you would make that have to consider other people. But again, it's a trade-off and it's a balance that you have to find. And hopefully you can get the idea of the other values as well. Some are more aligned than others. So you might say compassion and empathy are more aligned, but then of course you might say wealth and success and status might be more aligned, and it might be slightly different to empathy and compassion. So hopefully you can get the idea there with those sorts of values. And again, you can have a look and see which ones jump out to you and just think which ones relate to which and which ones don't relate to which so much. And think about certain careers that you think you're looking to go into. Does it reflect your values? And that is basically the questions that we want to leave you with. Those are the questions that we want you to take away to think about when you go away from this session, and when you are working for your applications, looking to apply for jobs. The first one is, do you actually know what your values are? Again, we spoke about why they're so important. So you know your values, it helps to guide your decisions, your behavior, and what we've discussed as well on previous slides. And do your values align to the job that you're applying to? I said this just then. In terms of the certain sectors that you want to work in, it is crucial to understand if the values that you stand by, will that be shown in the job that you do? If they're not, if they're misaligned, that could cause more stress than necessary. If they are aligned, then you will feel that fulfillment. So it's definitely something to be aware of. Just think about these two questions when you're thinking about applying to a certain job, or you're thinking about working in a certain industry. So we're going to be moving on to some top tips for brand management. So we spoke about what a brand, your personal brand is, but now we're going to talk about how you can actually manage it day to day. And you might find yourself looking at a few of these tips and really understanding how you may have demonstrated or you may not have demonstrated them. So yeah, these are definitely some good tips for brand management. And don't worry if you feel like you aren't doing these things or you are doing some of these things. It's not a problem. Just after this session, take this away and reflect on how well you follow these tips, and make sure you do use them when you're moving forward after this session. The tip one is don't burn bridges. This is probably the easiest thing to do. Once you've gone through a job process, a recruitment process, and you've got to the end and you've put in all that effort and it's not worked out, you could be easily disappointed and you might feel a bit frustrated. And you might not be happy. You might want to let people know that you're not happy about it. What would be problematic about that is that if you leave that on a bad term, and this comes with really any relationship in your life, friends, family, or whatever, any relationships, if it might end badly, in terms of this case, if the recruitment process ends badly, and you leave it as a negative state, it's unlikely you'll be able to come back to it. The bridge would have been burnt at that point, and it's highly unlikely that you might hear about that company and on opportunities that are there ever again. The recruitment manager might remember the name. Of course, we particularly remember the negative interactions that we've had. So they'll be able to remember, unfortunately, that bad interaction. And it might mean that you won't be able to be considered for a role in the future at that company. Or again, it could be that that person moves on from another place, and it might be that you apply to the new job and they're the recruiting manager, and they might remember, oh, that didn't end too well with that we had last time. On the other hand, if you were someone that was nice about it, they might remember you in a positive way. So it can be tempting to burn bridges. Of course, it can be. One might want to vent our frustration, but try your best to not do that. And this is shown in the next slide here. So this is where someone has not been successful in getting onto this management scheme, this graduate management scheme. So this is their response. So they've been told that they've not made the cut, and their response is, okay, well, that's your loss, because I've started a successful business now and I'm making great money. I'm also a qualified business teacher. Of course, that's not the most pleasant response after they've received a rejection. Later on, they try to recover it and they say, I apologize for that email. For some reason, my mum thought it would be wise to reply. Wishing you all the best for the future. Thanks for taking the time to read my application. So this is a whole mess of a situation, basically. So they've initially been angry about it, and whether it was their mum or not, who knows? But it just doesn't look good. It doesn't look professional. So you want to avoid this trap. It's completely unnecessary to do so. Just a simple thank you would have been nice. And that's another point that we'll come on to a little bit later. So yes, just avoid acting when you're in an angry state, basically, is the point to take away from this one. The next tip is all about networking. So the importance, we spoke about the brand and the importance of these platforms to showcase your brand. LinkedIn is a great place to demonstrate your personal brand and actually to reap the rewards of that. So if you haven't got a LinkedIn set up, of course, we do recommend that you do set one up so that you can connect with others, you can engage with others to, again, build your brand, to build your reputation. And a way you can do that on LinkedIn is it offers you the chance to engage with posts, and that's through likes and comments on posts that you find interesting. You can follow companies that you find interesting. You can follow individuals that you find interesting. And again, you can like and engage with those posts. And that gives off the impressions that other people are having of you. So let's go back to the sustainability example. If there's someone that cares about sustainability and you're engaging with posts that promote that, then people are going to understand that's a core value to you, that's important to you. That's the impression that you will give off. And it could be for anything else. If you like charity work and you're always encouraging people to volunteer and things like that, and you yourself like to volunteer, if you're engaging with those sorts of posts on LinkedIn, people are going to see that. And then hopefully you'll be able to build a network with those who are like-minded. So you might be able to send out connection requests from posts that you see, or even better, if you're feeling brave, you can make your own posts on LinkedIn and build your own brand about things that you care about on there. And then you might receive connection requests if people like what they see, if people like what you're talking about on LinkedIn. It doesn't have to be that you are constantly messaging people, asking for connection requests and doing it that way. It can simply be the way you treat any other social media platform. You might go on Instagram, you might scroll through posts and look at a post, you might leave a comment on there if you want to. You can do the same with LinkedIn in a professional manner as well. And again, people are going to see what you're engaging with because that's how LinkedIn works. And they're going to be able to reach out to you maybe, or you can reach out to others if there's similar interests. So that's what LinkedIn can afford. So definitely check it out, and you can build your network on there in a positive way. So definitely try and make the most out of that. In terms of events, so LinkedIn is a great place in terms of building your network and engaging with people, but you might want to go to events. So you will find out about events on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn's a great place to start in terms of building your brand and then going to events as well. And I'll quickly run through the rest of these websites here, just so you have an idea of what they're all about. So Eventbrite is a big one. You may have heard of it before, and you can search by location and area of interest as well on there. There should be plenty on there, despite just thinking about whatever industry you're interested in. There should be enough on there for everybody. Again, you can also find out about events on Twitter and Instagram as well. So definitely check those out. Of course, you might use it more in a personal capacity, but there would be some scope for attending events on there as well. Meetup is a bit more casual, but we do still recommend it if you're looking to do a bit more research and you want to build more connections and more of a network, then definitely check it out as well. It's a good source for freelancers on there as well. So you might want to reach out to certain individuals who could, of course, be a good addition to your network as well. Then you've got places like the Federation for Small Businesses. So that would help if you're looking to maybe meet employers face to face or in a smaller community, smaller employers, because larger, it might be more difficult to speak to a larger company at a larger event. So there are places for smaller businesses. Again, if you're interested in larger companies and larger events, they will still be running probably their own specific events. So an event that is just about that company. But the Federation for Small Businesses will have lots of small businesses at one event. So that's your option there. You can either go to a large event with one large organization, or you can go to a smaller event, but there'll be lots of smaller different companies there that you can engage with. And if you're someone that knows what sector you're interested in, what industry you want to work in, then you can actually just go straight to that industry regulator or the Chartered Institute for that sector, for example. So you've got the Chartered Institute of Marketing here. If you're someone that's interested in marketing, then of course you could head over to that website and find out about events through there. And the final tip is about following up. So this does relate to the first one. So to avoid burning bridges, you'd simply just follow up in a positive manner, just by saying, thank you for spending the time to review my application. I appreciate the feedback. If there is feedback, of course, we always want to make sure that people do get feedback. But just being thankful, just being grateful for the effort that companies have put in, because it does cost a lot of money for recruiters to secure the candidate that they want. And it's a long process for them as well. They've got to check out lots of applications. So anyone that can just show a bit of gratitude towards them will stand out, will be good. There will be a positive memory. It will be a nice feeling for the recruiter. And if another opportunity comes up, then of course, if they see a name again, they'll remember that positive interaction. And again, it could relate to the opposite of what I said earlier. If they move on to another company and then they find out about a new role and they see your application, they'll remember that positive interaction that they had. So avoid burning bridges and make sure you can definitely avoid burning bridges by following up and just being kind. Just a simple thank you message goes a long way. The last point we want to give you here, and hopefully it's a theme that has come across throughout the whole presentation, is the power of knowing your own why. So we spoke about values, and this can actually relate to businesses as well as individuals, because most businesses know what they do. Everybody who's an employee at a company will know what they do. It's that simple. People know how they do it, they know how the systems work and how it functions. Again, that's pretty standard. But rarely do people understand why they're doing what they're doing, why it is that they're motivated to work, to apply for this job, why it is they're working at this company day to day. Of course, there's the element of money, but money is more of a result of what they're doing. It's not about why they're motivated to do it every single day and what is actually getting them going. So it's important to understand our why, and we need to apply this same principle to ourselves when we think about the personal brand. If you can communicate your why to others, again, we spoke about it earlier in terms of creating clarity, it will really help. And it will really help if you know your why. It will really help you to understand if you're in the place that you should be, if you're in a place that is right for you, if the work you're doing aligns with your why, aligns with your values, and if you're getting fulfillment from that. That is why it's crucial to be aware of your why, aware of your values, and make sure you're looking for that in jobs that you apply to. It's not all about just having the simple personal brand, the impressions that people have of you. It's actually about knowing it yourself. People will have certain impressions and there will be deviations from what is truly the impression that you're trying to give off. What is important is that you are aware of your why. You are aware of your true personal brand and you try to showcase that as much as you can. That's just something just to leave you with, the power of knowing your why. Okay, so that's all for this recording. Hopefully you've got a better idea about personal branding now, and hopefully you can implement some of the things that we've discussed today in your day-to-day life to improve your personal branding and to utilize the power of your personal brand. So that's all for today, and thank you for watching.